Captain Samuel Hayes of the United Earth Defense Fleet sat alone in his quarters aboard the USS Vanguard. The room was small but neat, with just enough space for a bed, a desk, and a few personal items. The blue light from the nearby star Proxima Centauri shone through his viewport, casting strange shadows across the metal floor. Samuel stared at the message on his screen. He read it again, his face growing more serious with each word. It was an official summons from Earth. He was being called to testify before the Interstellar Relations Committee about what had happened during the first meeting with the Arxian aliens, the incident that had cost so many lives. One part of the message stood out. It said, "All military decorations and medals must be removed before entering the chamber." Samuel's hand went to his neck, where the platinum starburst medal hung from a simple blue ribbon. The Galactic Cross of Valor. He had been given this medal after saving 3 colony ships carrying over 3,000 people during the standoff at Proxima Centauri. Only 17 people had ever received this medal in the 100 years since humans had started traveling among the stars. It was the highest honor any fleet officer could receive. Samuel took a deep breath and pressed the I button on his desk. "Lieutenant Martinez, please come to my quarters." A few minutes later, there was a knock at his door. "Enter," Samuel said. Lieutenant Olivia Martinez walked in. She was a serious woman with dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. She had been Samuel's second in command for 3 years now. "You called for me, Captain?" she asked, standing at attention. Samuel pointed to the screen. "I've been summoned to Earth. The Interstellar Relations Committee wants me to testify about the Arxian incident." Martinez nodded slowly. "We knew this was coming, sir." "Yes, but look at this part." Samuel highlighted the instruction about removing medals. "Judge Franklin specifically wants me to remove my Cross of Valor before I testify." Martinez frowned. "That's unusual, sir. The Galactic Cross is recognized in all government chambers. It's your right to wear it." "Exactly," Samuel said, leaning back in his chair. "In 20 years of service, I've never heard of such a request." He stood up and walked to the viewport, looking out at the stars. The Arxian homeworld was out there, somewhere beyond what they could see. The aliens had been peaceful until human ships had entered their system. "Something isn't right about this hearing," Samuel said quietly. "Why wouldn't they want the medal to be seen?" Martinez stepped forward. "The medal makes you a hero, sir. It reminds everyone in that room of your service and sacrifice." Samuel turned to face her. "And without it, I'm just another officer who might have made a mistake." He narrowed his eyes. "Someone doesn't want the committee to see me as a hero." "What are you going to do?" Martinez asked. Samuel walked to his desk and pulled up a new screen. "First, I want to know everything about Judge Franklin and the committee members. Their backgrounds, their connections, their financial interests. Something doesn't add up." "Do you think this is about more than finding the truth of what happened?" Martinez asked. Samuel nodded slowly. "The Arxians attacked those mining ships because they were in sacred space. We were sent to protect the miners, but no one told us. We were defending ships that were breaking the boundary agreements." He pulled up a star chart showing the Proxima Centauri system. The red areas marked Arxian territory according to the initial boundary agreements. The mining operations had been deep in those red zones. 73 of our crew died that day, Samuel said, his voice growing tight. "And now someone wants to make sure the committee doesn't see this as a hero standing up for the truth. They want me to look like just another officer, maybe even someone who made a bad call." Martinez was already working on her tablet. "I'll get you everything I can find on the committee members, sir, and Judge Franklin. Focus on any connections to Stellar Extraction Corporation," Samuel added. "They owned those mining ships, and they have a lot to lose if the committee finds out they were operating illegally in Arxian space." Martinez looked up. "You think this goes that high? Stellar Extraction is one of the biggest companies in the system. Big enough to have friends on government committees," Samuel said. "Big enough to want a military officer to take the blame instead of their mining operations." Samuel looked at the travel details in the summons. We have 3 days before we need to head to Earth. That's not much time. It's enough, Martinez said firmly. If there are connections, I'll find them. After Martinez left, Samuel stood again and walked to the small mirror on his wall. He looked at the metal hanging from his neck. The platinum starburst caught the light, sending small flashes across his face. He thought about the day he had received it. The ceremony had been short. Earth's president had placed it around his neck with solemn words about bravery and service. But Samuel had not felt like a hero that day. He had felt like a survivor when so many others had not made it home. On the back of the medal were 73 small marks, one for each crew member who had died under his command that day. He wore it not for himself but for them, so that their sacrifice would not be forgotten. Now someone wanted him to take it off, to enter that hearing chamber as just another officer, not as the decorated captain who had saved thousands of lives. Samuel's jaw tightened as he looked at his reflection. In 20 years, he had never disobeyed a direct order. His career had been built on following the rules, on doing what was expected of him. But this medal was different. It wasn't really his to remove. It belonged to the memory of those 73 souls, to the thousands who had lived because of their sacrifice. As he stared at his reflection, Captain Samuel Hayes made a decision. Whatever the cost to his career, whatever the personal consequences, he would not remove the medal. He would wear it into that chamber, and he would make sure the committee heard the truth about what had happened at Proxima Centauri, because some orders should not be followed, and some truths should not be hidden. The Vanguard would begin its journey to Earth tomorrow. Samuel had 3 days to prepare for what might be the most important testimony of his life, and possibly the end of his career. The USS Vanguard moved through space toward Earth, its engines humming with steady power. Captain Samuel Hayes stood on the bridge, watching the stars streak by on the main screen. His ship was one of the most advanced in the fleet, but even at top speed, the journey to Earth would take 2 more days. "Captain, I have the information you asked for," Lieutenant Martinez said as she entered the bridge. Her voice was low, so only Samuel could hear. Samuel nodded. "Let's go to the conference room." Once the door closed behind them, Martinez placed her tablet on the table. The screen showed pictures of Judge Howard Franklin and the 5 committee members who would hear Samuel's testimony. "Tell me what you found," Samuel said, sitting down. Martinez touched the screen, bringing up financial records. "Judge Franklin has deep connections to Stellar Extraction Corporation. He doesn't own shares directly, but his brother-in-law is on their board of directors. Franklin's family trust has received large payments from companies that are owned by Stellar Extraction." Samuel frowned. "So the judge has financial ties to the very company whose mining ships were in Archean space?" "Yes, sir, and it gets worse." Martinez swiped the screen to show 3 of the committee members. "These 3 have all received large campaign donations from Stellar Extraction. 2 of them sit on subcommittees that approve mining rights in new territories." Samuel leaned back in his chair, his face growing dark. "They're not looking for the truth. They're looking for someone to blame instead of the mining company." "It appears that way, sir." Martinez pulled up more records. "I found something else interesting. Before the incident, there were plans already filed by Stellar Extraction to begin large-scale mining operations in the Proxima Centauri system. They were just waiting for approval, which they would get easily if the Archeans were seen as aggressive and dangerous," Samuel said slowly, the pieces coming together in his mind. "If the committee decides the Archeans attacked us without cause, then Stellar Extraction can claim those territories for human development with military protection." Martinez finished. Samuel stood up and paced the room. The Archeans were peaceful until the mining ships crossed their boundaries. The areas they claimed were clearly marked in our first contact agreements. "But most people don't know that," Martinez said. "The public only knows there was an attack, and that you saved 3 colony ships." Samuel stopped pacing and looked at his second-in-command. "They're setting me up, aren't they? They want me to appear as just another officer, not a decorated hero. They need someone to blame for the diplomatic failure." "It looks that way, sir." Martinez's voice was grim. If they can blame the military for being aggressive rather than the mining companies for crossing boundaries, Stellar Extraction gets their mining rights and I get court-martialed, Samuel said, his jaw tight. He walked to the window, looking out at the stars. The metal hung heavy around his neck. 73 crew members had died that day. He had promised their families he would make sure their deaths meant something. I won't let them use me to cover up the truth, Samuel said quietly. Martinez stepped closer. What are you going to do, sir? If you go against them, it could end your career, 20 years of service gone. Samuel turned to face her. My career isn't worth more than the truth. It isn't worth more than justice for our crew. He touched the metal at his neck. I've spent my life following orders. Maybe it's time I started questioning them. You'll need evidence, Martinez said. Something more than just financial connections, Samuel nodded. Access the ship's records from the Proxima Centauri incident. Get me everything. Communication logs, sensor data, the original orders. There has to be something there they don't want coming out. For the next several hours, Samuel and Martinez went through the ship's records. They found the original boundary agreements with the Arxians, clearly showing the mining ships had been in forbidden space. They found communications between Fleet Command and Stellar Extraction that had never been made public. Look at this, Martinez said, pointing to a message dated 3 days before the incident. Stellar Extraction knew their ships were in Arxian territory. They were warned by their own security teams. Samuel read the message. And they stayed anyway. They knew they were breaking the agreement. There's more, Martinez said, pulling up another file. This is from Fleet Command to us the day before the attack. They knew the mining ships were in danger because they had crossed the boundary. But the orders we received only said to protect human vessels, not that those vessels were violating Arxian space. Samuel's face hardened. They sent us in blind. We were defending ships that never should have been there in the first place. He slammed his hand on the table. 73 crew members died because someone wanted to mine rocks in another species territory. Martinez looked up at her captain. This is enough to cause serious problems for Stellar Extraction, and for several high-ranking fleet officers. And for 3 committee members and a judge, Samuel added. He straightened his uniform and touched his metal again. Make copies of everything, keep one set secure on the ship. Send another through private channels to Admiral Carter. She's always been straight with me. What about your testimony? Martinez asked. I'm going to tell the truth, Samuel said. All of it, and I'm going to wear this medal when I do it. They'll try to stop you, Martinez warned, once they realize what you know. Samuel nodded. That's why we need to be prepared. If they cut off my testimony, we need another way to get this information out. The media will be at the hearing, Martinez said. If we could get this information to them, work on it, Samuel ordered. Find a way to display all this during the hearing if necessary. As Martinez left to carry out his orders, Samuel stood alone in the conference room. The weight of his decision pressed on him. In one day, he would stand before the committee. He would either leave that room with his career intact, having played along with their game, or he would tell the truth and face the consequences. Samuel Hayes had never seen himself as a hero. He had only ever tried to be a good officer, to follow orders, to serve Earth and its people. But now he faced a choice between his duty to the fleet and his duty to the truth. He thought of the 73 names engraved on the back of his medal. He had promised them justice. Whatever happened tomorrow, he would keep that promise. The hearing chamber was large and cold. Rows of seats rose up on all sides, filled with government officials, reporters, and corporate representatives. At the front, a long table stood on a raised platform where Judge Franklin and the 5 committee members sat. Their faces were serious as they looked down at the witness area below them. Captain Samuel Hayes stood at the entrance to the chamber. He wore his formal blue uniform with its crisp lines and silver buttons. Around his neck hung the platinum starburst of the Galactic Cross of Valor, catching the light as he breathed. Lieutenant Martinez stood a few steps behind him, her tablet held tightly in her hands. A man in a gray uniform approached Samuel. Captain Hayes, I am the bailiff for this hearing. I must ask you to remove all military decorations as per Judge Franklin's instructions. Samuel looked straight ahead. This medal represents the 73 crew members who died saving 3,000 civilians. I wear it not for myself, but for them. The bailiff shifted uncomfortably. I'm sorry, sir. Those are the orders I was given. Samuel nodded once. I understand you have your job to do, but I have mine as well. With that, he walked past the bailiff and into the chamber, the medal still hanging from his neck. A whisper moved through the crowd as people noticed. At the front table, Judge Franklin's face darkened. As Samuel reached the witness stand, Judge Franklin leaned forward. Captain Hayes, you were instructed to remove your military decorations before entering this chamber. Samuel stood tall. With respect, Your Honor, the Galactic Cross is not merely a military decoration. According to Interstellar Code 47.3, items awarded for the protection of civilian life transcend military distinction and cannot be ordered removed in any governmental proceeding. The chamber fell silent. During the journey to Earth, Samuel had studied the regulations carefully. He knew his rights and he knew the law. Judge Franklin was clearly surprised that Samuel had challenged him. After a moment, Franklin spoke again. The record will show Captain Hayes is in violation of chamber protocol. His voice was stiff. However, we will proceed with the hearing. Samuel took his seat at the witness stand. He noticed several of the committee members whispering to each other, their faces concerned. They had not expected him to stand his ground. Captain Hayes, Franklin began, you are here to explain your actions during the Proxima Centauri incident that resulted in the breakdown of relations with the Archean species. Do you understand the purpose of this hearing? I do, Your Honor, Samuel replied. Please explain to the committee what happened on the day in question. Samuel took a deep breath. This was the moment. He could give them the simple story they wanted, that the Archeans had attacked without cause, or he could tell the truth. On that day, the USS Vanguard received orders to protect human mining vessels in the Proxima Centauri system. We were told that these ships were under threat from the Archean fleet. Samuel paused. What we were not told was that these mining vessels had crossed into territory that had been recognized as Archean space in our first contact agreements. A murmur ran through the crowd. One of the committee members, a woman with gray hair, leaned forward with a frown. Captain, the official report states that the mining vessels were in neutral space. Samuel nodded. Yes, that is what the official report says. However, I have brought evidence today that shows this was not the case. Judge Franklin cut in quickly. This hearing is not to debate the location of the mining vessels. It is to examine your actions as captain of the Vanguard. With respect, Your Honor, Samuel replied calmly. The location of those vessels is central to understanding what happened that day and why the Archeans responded as they did. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small data chip. I would like to submit evidence relevant to these proceedings. Before Franklin could object, Samuel nodded to Martinez, who had moved to the chamber's main display system. She quickly inserted a duplicate chip into the system. This is out of order, Franklin said, his voice rising. Lieutenant, step away from that console immediately. But it was too late. The large screens around the chamber suddenly lit up with maps of the Proxima Centauri system. Red lines clearly showed the boundaries that had been agreed upon with the Archeans. Blue dots showed the position of the mining ships, deep inside the red zones. As you can see, Samuel continued, his voice steady, the stellar extraction vessels were operating well within Archean territory. This was a clear violation of the boundary agreement. The screens changed to show internal communications between stellar extraction executives and fleet command. The dates showed that these messages had been sent before the incident. These communications show that both stellar extraction and certain members of fleet command were aware that these mining operations were illegal. They knew they were violating Archean space. The chamber erupted in noise. Reporters were taking pictures and typing quickly on their devices. Committee members were talking to each other in shocked voices. Judge Franklin banged his gavel repeatedly. This Is inadmissible evidence. Lieutenant, shut down that display immediately. Martinez stood her ground. I'm sorry, Your Honor, but as the captain's executive officer, I am required by Interstellar Naval Code to support the presentation of factual evidence in any proceeding involving fleet actions. Samuel continued before Franklin could respond. The Arxians sent 3 warnings before they took any action. Those warnings were ignored. When they finally moved to stop the mining operations, the Vanguard was sent in without being told the full situation. The screens now showed the original warnings from the Arxian government, followed by the orders sent to the Vanguard. The orders mentioned only protecting human vessels with no reference to the boundary violations. We were sent to protect ships that were breaking the law, Samuel said, his voice growing stronger. My crew fought and died defending an illegal operation because we were not given the truth. Franklin was on his feet now. This hearing is suspended. Guards, clear the chamber and confiscate all recording devices. But the damage was done. The media representatives were already sending the evidence out. Public feeds across Earth and the colonies were lighting up with the story. The truth that Samuel had fought to reveal was now impossible to hide. As security, officers moved into the chamber. Samuel remained standing tall at the witness stand. He could see the fury on Judge Franklin's face, the panic on the faces of several committee members. But he also saw the reporters still working, still spreading the truth. Samuel's hand went to the medal at his neck. 73 crew members had died that day. They had deserved better than to be used as pawns in a corporate land grab. Today, finally, the truth of their sacrifice would be known. Whatever happened next, whatever the cost to his career, Samuel Hayes knew he had done the right thing. For the first time since the incident at Proxima Centauri, he felt the weight lift from his shoulders. He had kept his promise. Samuel sat in a small waiting room outside the chamber. 2 hours had passed since the hearing had been suspended. The room had plain gray walls and just one small window showing the city outside. Security officers stood by the door, making it clear that Samuel and Martinez were not free to leave. What do you think happens next, sir? Martinez asked. She sat across from him, still holding her tablet. Samuel shook his head. I'm not sure, but there's no way they can hide what happened now. The evidence is out there. The door opened, and a tall woman in a fleet admiral's uniform walked in. Admiral Rebecca Winters was the head of the United Earth Defense Fleet. Her face was serious as she looked at Samuel and Martinez. Captain Hayes. Lieutenant Martinez. She nodded to them both. You've caused quite a stir today. Samuel stood. Admiral, I did what I believed was right. You disobeyed a direct order from a judge and leaked classified information to the public, Admiral Winters said. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were sharp. Judge Franklin is calling for both of you to be court-martialed. Martinez stepped forward. Admiral, the public had a right to know the truth. 73 crew members died because of lies. Admiral, Winters held up her hand. I understand your feelings, Lieutenant, but there are proper channels for this kind of information. With respect, Admiral, Samuel said, we tried the proper channels. I filed 3 reports about the true nature of the incident. All of them were classified and buried. The Admiral walked to the window and looked out at the city. For a long moment she was silent. Then she turned back to them. The committee has been dissolved. Judge Franklin and 2 of the members have been removed pending an investigation into their ties with stellar extraction. She paused. Your evidence was very thorough, Captain. Samuel nodded. Lieutenant Martinez deserves most of the credit for that. Admiral Winters looked at Martinez. Good work, Lieutenant. Though I do not approve of your methods, I cannot argue with your dedication to the truth. She turned back to Samuel. The Arxian government has reached out to us. They saw the news reports. They've requested a new meeting to discuss what happened. Samuel felt a moment of hope. Perhaps something good could come from all this after all. That's good news, Admiral. It is, she agreed. But it doesn't change the fact that you both broke numerous regulations today. She sighed. Captain Hayes, I've known you for 15 years. You've always been one of our best officers. But what You did today cannot go without consequences. Samuel straightened his shoulders. I understand, Admiral. I accept whatever punishment is deemed appropriate. Admiral Winters nodded. For now, you are both confined to the fleet headquarters. There will be a formal review of your actions next week. Until then, you are relieved of duty. After the Admiral left, Samuel sat back down. He had expected worse. Being relieved of duty was serious, but not as bad as immediate court-martial. We did the right thing, Martinez said quietly. No matter what happens next. Samuel nodded. Yes, we did. The next few days passed slowly. Samuel and Martinez were given quarters at fleet headquarters. They were not under arrest, but they were not allowed to leave the building or contact anyone outside. On the third day, Samuel was called to a meeting with Admiral Winters and several other high-ranking fleet officers. He wore his formal uniform, but left his medal in his quarters. This was not the time for another stand. The meeting room was large, with a round table in the center. The officers sat around it, their faces serious. Admiral Winters nodded for Samuel to take a seat. Captain Hayes, the situation has developed in ways we did not expect, she began. The evidence you presented has led to a full investigation of stellar extractions operations in Arxian space. 3 fleet admirals have been suspended for their part in covering up the truth. Samuel remained silent, waiting for her to continue. The Arxian government has made it clear that they want someone held responsible for the deaths of their citizens during the incident, Admiral Winters continued. But they have also expressed a desire to move forward with better relations. One of the other officers, an older man with white hair, spoke up. The public response to your testimony has been overwhelming, Captain. You've become something of a hero to many people. They see you as someone who stood up for the truth at great personal cost. Samuel shook his head. I'm not a hero, sir. I was just trying to do what was right for my crew and for the families of those we lost. Admiral Winters leaned forward. Hero or not, Captain, your actions have put us in a difficult position. We cannot simply ignore the rules you broke, but we also cannot ignore the good that has come from what you did. She slid a data tablet across the table to him. This is a formal reprimand for disobeying orders and releasing classified information without authorization. It will go in your permanent record. Samuel took the tablet. A reprimand was serious, but far less severe than he had expected. There's more, Admiral Winters said. Effective immediately, you are reassigned from active fleet duty. And there it was. The end of his career as a ship captain. Samuel had known it was coming, but it still hit him hard. 20 years of service, ended by one act of defiance. I understand, Admiral, he said, keeping his voice steady. Your new assignment is as Special Advisor to the Arxian Relations Committee, Admiral Winters continued. The Arxians specifically requested you for this role. They said they value a human who puts truth above personal gain. Samuel looked up in surprise. This was not what he had expected at all. The Arxians want me. Admiral Winters nodded. They saw your testimony. They saw you stand up for what was right, even when it cost you. That impressed them. She allowed herself a small smile. They also noticed that you refused to remove your medal. They have a similar tradition of honoring those who have sacrificed for others. Samuel was silent for a moment, taking it all in. He wasn't losing his career after all. It was changing, becoming something new. What about Lieutenant Martinez? He asked. She will receive a similar reprimand, Admiral Winters said. But she is being offered a position as your assistant in the new role, if you both agree. Samuel nodded slowly. When do we start? A delegation from the Arxian homeworld will arrive next week, another officer said. You'll begin preparations tomorrow. As Samuel left the meeting, he felt a strange mix of emotions. His career as a ship captain was over. He would never again command a vessel like the Vanguard, but perhaps his new role would allow him to prevent another incident like the one that had cost so many lives. Perhaps some good could come from all of this after all. When he returned to his quarters, he found the Galactic Cross of Valor on his desk, where he had left it. He picked it up, feeling the weight of it in his hand. Then he placed it around his neck once more. Whatever came next, he would continue to honor those who had been lost. He would continue to stand for the truth. 1 week later, Samuel stood in the large reception hall of the Earth Diplomatic Center. The room was bright with natural light from tall windows that looked out over the city. Plants from a dozen worlds grew in large pots around the edges of the room, their strange leaves and flowers adding color to the space. Samuel wore a new uniform today. It was dark blue with silver trim, the formal dress of the diplomatic corps. The galactic cross of valor still hung from his neck, catching the light as he moved. Lieutenant Martinez stood beside him, wearing a similar uniform. "Are you nervous, sir?" she asked quietly. Samuel nodded. "A little. This is very different from commanding a ship." "You'll do fine," Martinez said. "You always do." The main doors of the hall opened and Admiral Winters walked in. With her was a group of tall, thin beings with pale blue skin. The Arxians had 4 arms and large dark eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. They wore simple white clothing with intricate patterns woven into the fabric. "Captain Hayes," Admiral Winters said as she approached. "May I present Ambassador Zorax of the Arxian Confederation." Samuel stepped forward and gave the traditional Arxian greeting, crossing his 2 arms as if he had 4 like they did. "Welcome to Earth, Ambassador. It is an honor to meet you." The Arxian studied Samuel with those large eyes. "The honor is mine, Captain Hayes. Your actions have brought truth to a situation clouded by deception. My people value truth above all things." "Thank you, Ambassador," Samuel replied. "I only wish that truth had been known sooner. Perhaps then we could have avoided the loss of life on both sides." Zorax nodded slowly. "What is past cannot be changed, but the future is still to be written. That is why we are here today." For the next several hours, Samuel and Martinez sat in meetings with the Arxian delegation. They discussed what had happened at Proxima Centauri and how to prevent such incidents in the future. The talks were serious but friendly. The Arxians seemed genuinely interested in improving relations with humans. During a short break, Samuel stepped out onto a balcony for some fresh air. To his surprise, Ambassador Zorax joined him. "Your world has much beauty," the Arxian said, looking out at the city and the mountains beyond. "Yes, it does," Samuel agreed. "I've spent most of my life on ships, so I don't get to see it as often as I'd like." Zorax turned those large eyes on him. "You wore your medal during your testimony, even when ordered to remove it. Why?" Samuel touched the medal at his neck. "This represents the crew members who died under my command. I wear it to honor their memory and their sacrifice. Taking it off would have felt like betraying them. Among my people, we have a similar tradition," Zorax said. "We carry marks that represent those we have lost. Not to remove them is to keep faith with the dead." The ambassador reached into a pocket and pulled out a small object. It was a disc made of some shining blue material, with strange symbols carved into its surface. "This is for you," Zorax said, holding it out. "It is a token of respect for my government. It bears the names of those Arxians who died during the incident, alongside the names of your human crew members." Samuel took the disc carefully. It was surprisingly light in his hand. "This is a great honor, Ambassador. I will treasure it." "It is more than a memento," Zorax explained. "It is a symbol of our shared loss and our shared hope for a better future. Both our peoples have paid in blood for the greed of a few. Let us ensure it does not happen again." After the Arxians left, Samuel found himself called to Admiral Winters' office. The room was simple but elegant, with a large desk and a view of the harbor. The Admiral gestured for him to sit. "The meetings went well," she said. "The Arxians seem pleased with you as their liaison." "They are a remarkable people," Samuel said. "Their culture values honesty and directness. It makes diplomacy with them straightforward, if sometimes blunt." Admiral Winters nodded. "I've been reviewing your new position. As Special Advisor to the Arxian Relations Committee, you'll be spending significant time with both our diplomats and theirs. There's also talk of you visiting their homeworld as part of an exchange program. Samuel raised his eyebrows. Their homeworld? I hadn't expected that. It would be a first, the Admiral agreed. No human has ever been invited to visit Arxia before. They're a private people. The fact that they suggested it shows how much they value what you did. She leaned back in her chair. Your career has taken a very different turn than either of us expected, Captain. Yes, it has, Samuel agreed. A week ago, I thought my career was over. Now I'm helping to build a new relationship with a species we were on the brink of war with. Life is full of surprises, Admiral Winters said with a small smile. Some of them are even good ones. As Samuel left the Admiral's office, he found Martinez waiting for him in the hallway. How did it go, sir? She asked. Well, Samuel replied, though I think you should stop calling me sir. We're diplomats now, not fleet officers. Martinez smiled. Old habits die hard. What's next for us? Samuel touched the disc that Ambassador Zorax had given him, now sitting in his pocket next to his medal. We've been invited to visit the Arxian homeworld. Martinez's eyes widened. Really? That's incredible. It is, Samuel agreed. And a little terrifying. We'll be the first humans to ever set foot there. They walked together down the long hallway toward their new offices in the diplomatic wing. Do you miss it? Martinez asked after a while. Being a captain? Having your own ship? Samuel thought about it. He had spent 20 years in space, most of them in command of one vessel or another. The Vanguard had been his home, and his crew his family. There was a part of him that would always miss that life. I miss the Vanguard, he admitted. And I miss the crew. But this feels right. What we're doing now matters. It might even matter more than what we did before. Martinez nodded. Saving, one ship at a time, or helping build peace between two species. I think you're right. As they reached their offices, Samuel paused at the door. His name was already on a small plaque. Samuel Hayes, Special Advisor to the Arxian Relations Committee. It wasn't captain anymore, but that was okay. Titles changed. What mattered was the work itself and the truth behind it. Samuel touched the medal at his neck one more time. He had worn it into that hearing chamber as a symbol of his promise, to honor the dead. Now it had become something more, a symbol of his commitment to the truth no matter the cost. His military career had ended, but something new and perhaps more important had begun. Let's get to work, he said to Martinez. We have a lot to do before we visit Arxia. As they entered their new office, Samuel felt a sense of purpose stronger than any he had known before. The path ahead was uncertain, but he would walk it with the same courage and honesty that had brought him here. And whatever challenges came, he would face them with the truth as his guide.